Why Elçin Sangu's new movie with Cagatay Ulusoy is shocking the media. Nobody saw this coming. Not the fans, not the critics, not even the Turkish entertainment industry that thought it had seen everything. When the first image leaked online, social media did not just react. It exploded. And the reason why is something that goes far deeper than two famous faces appearing in the same film. This is not just a movie announcement. This is a cultural earthquake. And before this video is over, you are going to understand exactly why. Elçin Sangu and Cagatay Ulusoy. Two names that, separately, have defined Turkish television and cinema for over a decade. But together? Together they represent something that the Turkish entertainment world has been quietly whispering about for years. A pairing so loaded with history, with expectation, with unspoken meaning, that simply putting them in the same room was never going to be a neutral act. So, what actually happened? Why is this project sending shockwaves not just through Turkey, but through entertainment media across Europe, the Middle East, and the Turkish diaspora worldwide? And what is it about these two specific people coming together that makes this moment feel like something that was either inevitable or completely impossible, depending on who you ask? Stay with me, because the full picture is more complicated and more fascinating than any headline has managed to capture. To understand why this collaboration is shaking things up, you first need to understand who these two people actually are. Not the surface version. The real version. Elçin Sangu did not become a star overnight. She built it. Born in Istanbul, she came up through the competitive world of Turkish modeling before transitioning into acting. And in an industry that often treats actresses as decorative, she consistently chose roles that demanded something more. Her breakthrough in Camtavanlar showed audiences a different kind of female character. Complex. Contradictory. Fully human. She followed it with Dalyane, which became a phenomenon across Turkey and internationally, drawing audiences from Latin America to the Balkans through streaming platforms hungry for Turkish content. What made Elçin different was not just her talent. It was her taste. She has been selective in a way that very few actors at her level can afford to be. She has turned down productions. She has walked away from deals. She has spoken publicly about wanting her work to mean something. In an industry driven by volume, that kind of artistic conviction is either respected or resented, and in her case, it has mostly been both. Cagatay Ulusoy's story carries a different energy entirely. He arrived in the public eye almost like a myth. Tall, intense, with a screen presence that felt slightly unreal even in photographs. His first major role, in Medcezir, turned him into a phenomenon before he was 25. But it was Iserd, his crime drama where he played an undercover cop navigating impossible moral territory, that revealed the full depth of what he could do. Critics who had dismissed him as a pretty face suddenly had to reconsider. Then he made a move that surprised almost everyone. He signed with Netflix for The Protector, becoming one of the first Turkish actors to headline a major international streaming series. For seasons. Global distribution. Critical coverage in outlets that had never previously written about Turkish entertainment. He did not just cross over. He pulled an entire conversation with him. These are not two people who stumbled into fame. They are two people who built careers with intention. Which makes what happened next so striking. When word first started spreading that Elçin and Cagatay were circling the same project, the initial reaction in Turkish entertainment circles was something close to disbelief. Not because the pairing was impossible, but because of everything surrounding it. Here is where things get genuinely interesting. For years, there has been a persistent layer of public fascination around both of these actors that goes beyond their professional work. Elçin Sangu is married to actor Barış Arduç, and their relationship has been one of the most followed in Turkish celebrity culture. Warm, visible, and by all accounts genuinely affectionate, they represent a kind of aspirational partnership that fans invest in emotionally. Meanwhile, Cagatay Ulusoy has maintained a famously guarded private life, especially in recent years, which has only intensified public curiosity about him. Put those two people in a film together, and you are not just making a movie. You are dropping a match into a room full of speculation, loyalty, excitement, and expectation. And some people inside the industry reportedly wondered whether that was a deliberate calculation or simply a creative decision that happened to carry enormous cultural weight. The answer, based on everything that has come out, appears to be the latter. But that does not make it less complicated. Details about the project itself began emerging gradually, and each new piece of information added another layer to the story. The film is said to be a dramatic production with strong emotional undertones, a departure from the lighter romantic territory that both actors have visited earlier in their careers. Early descriptions from people connected to the production suggest something with real psychological weight. A story about choices, about the cost of ambition, about the kind of relationships that define who you become. Whether those descriptions turn out to match the final product remains to be seen. But the framing matters because it signals that neither Elçin nor Cagatay came to this project looking for an easy win. They came for something that would push them. When Elçin confirmed her involvement publicly, she was characteristically measured in what she said. She spoke about the script, about the challenge, about her excitement for the collaboration without giving away the details that everyone was desperate to know. It was a masterclass in saying something while revealing nothing, and it drove the online conversation absolutely wild. Cagatay's confirmation came slightly later and with even fewer words. A single image shared without caption. And somehow that silence said more than a press release ever could. The media response was immediate and global. Turkish entertainment outlets ran the story within minutes. Then it spread. Coverage appeared in Arabic-language entertainment media across the Gulf. Spanish-language accounts covering Turkish drama, which have massive followings across Latin America and Spain, picked it up and ran. English-language entertainment blogs focused on international streaming jumped in. Within 48 hours, the story had legs in markets that most Turkish productions spend years trying to reach. Why does this matter? Because it reveals something significant about where Turkish cinema and television now sit in the global cultural conversation. A decade ago, this announcement would have been major within Turkey and perhaps across the Turkish diaspora. Today, it registers internationally in a way that reflects how dramatically the appetite for Turkish storytelling has grown. Netflix, Amazon, and other platforms have spent years investing in Turkish content, and that investment has created audiences who are genuinely invested in Turkish stars as global figures, not just regional ones. Elçin and Cagatay are both beneficiaries of that shift, and their collaboration arrives at a moment when the global interest in what they do is at an all-time high. But here is the layer that the international coverage mostly missed. Inside Turkey, the conversation around this project has a specific texture that outsiders might not immediately pick up on. Because both of these actors carry with them the weight of fandoms. And Turkish fandoms are not casual. They are organized, passionate, vocal, and sometimes ferociously protective. Elçin's fan base has a particular loyalty to her as a person, not just as an actress. They follow her choices with the kind of investment that goes beyond entertainment. They celebrated her marriage. They cheered her career decisions. They are, collectively, intensely watchful over how she is portrayed and what narratives form around her. So when news of this collaboration broke, the initial online response was not uniformly celebratory. There was excitement, yes. But there was also a current of anxiety from some corners of her fanbase, a kind of protective wariness about what this project might mean and how it might be framed. Cagatay's fans, meanwhile, brought their own complicated feelings. He has been somewhat absent from Turkish productions in recent years, focused on international work, and his return to a domestic project is something that section of his audience has been quietly hoping for. For them, this feels like a homecoming, which creates an interesting dynamic where two different fan communities are watching the same project through completely different emotional lenses. That tension between different kinds of expectation, different kinds of hope and protective feeling is part of what gives this announcement its unusual charge. It is not just a movie. It is an event that people have feelings about before a single scene has been filmed. There is something else worth examining here, and it has to do with timing. Elçin Sangu has, by any measure, been in a period of deliberate artistic evolution. Her recent choices suggest an actress who is consciously expanding the range of what she is willing to explore on screen. She has spoken in interviews about not wanting to be defined by a single type of character. She has expressed interest in stories that go to darker, more morally ambiguous places. This project fits that trajectory precisely. For Cagatay, the timing carries its own significance. After the international chapter of his career opened doors that most Turkish actors can only imagine, there is a question that has been following him quietly. What does he do with that? Does he chase more global projects? Does he return to his roots? Does he find a way to bridge both worlds? A high-profile domestic film with one of Turkey's most respected actresses represents a kind of answer to that question. It says something about where his priorities are, at least for now. And that answer has been received with genuine warmth in parts of the Turkish entertainment community that had been watching his international trajectory with a mixture of pride and a faint sense of distance. Now comes the part that media coverage has been dancing around without quite naming directly. The actual content of the film, what the story is, what these characters go through, what kind of emotional territory they are asked to inhabit together, has been kept remarkably private for a production that has generated this much public attention. And that privacy itself has become part of the story. In an era of constant content, of behind-the-scenes footage and social media set visits and real-time casting announcements, the relative silence around the specifics of this project is striking. It feels like a deliberate choice. And if it is working. Because the silence has allowed the imagination of the audience to fill in the gaps, and what audiences have imagined has kept the conversation going longer and louder than any promotional strategy might have managed. There is a lesson in that for the entertainment industry more broadly. Sometimes the most powerful promotional tool is restraint. Let people wonder. Let them argue. Let them hope. The speculation itself becomes the trailer. What the production team has allowed to emerge, carefully and in controlled amounts, is a sense of the emotional landscape of the film. Words like intense and layered have appeared in adjacent conversations. There are suggestions of a story that does not resolve easily, that sits with its characters in places of genuine difficulty rather than steering toward comfortable conclusions. If that description is accurate, and it is worth being clear that much of this remains in the territory of industry sources and informed speculation rather than confirmed fact, then this film represents something genuinely ambitious. Turkish cinema has produced work of profound depth. It has also produced enormous quantities of content that prioritizes comfort over challenge. A project that positions itself in the ambitious category, with two of the most credible names in the industry attached to it, is a meaningful event. The media has been using the word shocking, and it is worth interrogating that word for a moment. Shocking how? Shocking because the pairing was unexpected? Shocking because of the reaction it provoked? Shocking because of what it represents? Probably all three, but the third one is the most interesting. Because what this collaboration represents is a kind of consolidation of two different streams of Turkish entertainment credibility into a single moment. Elçin carries the credibility of the long-running prestige drama, the kind of storytelling that built Turkish television's international reputation over the course of years. Cagatay carries the credibility of the new era, of global streaming and international recognition. Bringing those two things together in one production says something about what Turkish cinema can be and perhaps what it is becoming. It also, not incidentally, says something about what audiences are ready for. The global appetite for Turkish content has never been higher. Platforms are investing. International press is paying attention. Festivals that previously ignored Turkish cinema are starting to look. This is a moment of genuine possibility for an industry that has worked hard to reach it. And into that moment steps a film featuring two of the most recognizable and respected names the industry has produced. The shocked media response makes more sense when you look at it that way. It is not just celebrity gossip, though there is certainly an element of that in the coverage. It is the recognition, perhaps not always articulated clearly, that this project arrives at an inflection point. That it means something beyond itself. There have been reports, worth treating with appropriate caution as specific sources have not been confirmed that the response from international distribution partners to early information about this project has been significant. That conversations are happening at a level that suggests this film may have ambitions beyond domestic release. If accurate, that would represent another layer of stakes attached to a production that is already carrying quite a lot. Elçin and Cagatay are both, it should be said, experienced enough to know what it feels like when a project generates this kind of energy before it is even made. They have both had productions that arrived with enormous expectation. They have both navigated the complicated experience of delivering on that expectation, or navigating the space when the finished work meets a different response than the announcement generated. That experience matters, because it means they are likely approaching this with clear eyes about what the noise around it actually represents. The announcement is one thing, the film is another, and the film is the only thing that will ultimately matter. What is certain is this: whatever the finished product turns out to be, the conversation it has already started is real and significant. It has reminded international audiences of the depth and range of talent that Turkish entertainment has produced. It has given Turkish audiences a reason to feel excited about a domestic production in a way that feels different from ordinary promotional enthusiasm. And it has planted a question in the minds of everyone paying attention. What happens when two of the most compelling performers in Turkish cinema, each of them carrying their own specific gravity, step into a story together? The answer to that question is coming. And if the silence around the specifics is any indication, the people behind this project are very confident that the answer is worth waiting for. Elçin Sangu built a career on choosing work that mattered to her. Cagatay Ulusoy built a career on choosing challenges that most people would have avoided. This project appears to sit at the intersection of both of those instincts. And that intersection is a place where something genuinely remarkable is possible. Turkish cinema has been quietly telling the world that it is ready for a new chapter. This film, with everything it carries and everything it represents, may turn out to be one of the opening pages of that chapter. Or it may simply turn out to be a very good movie with two extraordinary performers doing what they do best. Either way, the world is watching. And after everything we have just walked through together, it is not hard to understand why. What do you